Hello everyone, I am Dr. Parul Chauhan. I am a physiotherapist from All India Institute of Medical Sciences, AIIMS, New Delhi. And today we will discuss the importance of two very significant things for our elderly. The first is exercise and the second is the use of assistive devices like canes, walkers, braces, etc. So let's start our discussion. Our aging population is an asset to us, so we should take really good care of them. They are invaluable to us as they provide us advice based on their life experiences. As a famous saying goes, life is too short to learn from your own mistakes. So we have to avoid these mistakes, and the only way to do this is to learn from our elders. In today's fast-paced life, with both the spouses working, we can understand the importance of having a healthy and active elder at home. It is also essential for the seniors to remain active and healthy so that they can enjoy their retirement for which they have worked their whole life. So, to take care of our precious parents, we need to understand their condition first. So, let us first understand what aging actually is. Aging is a complex process of changes to an individual's body and mind and the consequent ability to participate in everyday activities and roles. As age increases, many organs undergo reduced or altered function. With the advent of modern healthcare, lifespans are increasing and older adults are living with multiple comorbidities. So, what we understand from this is that as age increases, some cells of our body and brain become less efficient and we develop diseases like diabetes, which is due to decreased function of the pancreas, high blood pressure, which is due to decreased function of the cardiovascular system, decreased function of the cartilage and synovial fluid leading to arthritis and many such other conditions. These non-communicable diseases requiring large quantum of health and social care are extremely common in old age, irrespective of the socio-economic status. Disabilities resulting from these non-communicable diseases are very frequent, which affect functionality, compromising the ability to pursue the activities of daily living. The treatment management of these chronic diseases is also costly, especially for cancer treatment, joint replacements, heart surgery, neurosurgical procedures, etc., thereby making it out of bound for elderly whose income decreases post-retirement and more so for the elderly in the unorganized sector and dependent elderly women. So, what should we do to avoid this? Obviously, improve the elders' physical activity level so that their body systems work to their full potential. The awareness regarding improving the physical activity of older adults has been growing among policymakers and healthcare professionals during the past few years. The evidence shows that improving older patients' physical ability, lifestyle behaviors, and quality of life could promote building resilience and healthy aging. Despite inevitable bodily changes, a person can enjoy a well-functioning mind and body and should be able to live independently with a good quality of life. Many chronic conditions and non-communicable diseases can be prevented or their progression can be delayed by engaging in healthy behaviors. But the ground reality is that studies have found that this age group spends on an average of 10.7 hours per day sitting, with 40% of this age group living a sedentary lifestyle. What is a sedentary lifestyle? A sedentary behavior is defined as any waking behavior characterized by less energy expenditure such as sitting, reclining or lying down. Recent evidences indicates that high levels of continuous sedentary behavior such as sitting for long periods of time are associated with diabetes and heart related problems. So, it is crucial this is addressed and that older adults are encouraged to move. Getting people to move is a key strategy for reducing the burden of non-communicable diseases, as has been articulated in the World Health Organization's Global Action Plan for the Prevention and Control of Non-Communicable Diseases 2013-2020. The plan calls for a 10% reduction in physical inactivity by 2025, which contributes to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. So, by promoting activity, you join the WHO's efforts to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals of the millennium. Let us see what the international recommendations say about the activity level to be achieved. The current international recommendations for adults for physical activity are different in different countries. So, we take the example of Australia, where it is advised that everyone should try to do at least 30 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity on most days of the week. We go to Canada, again the advice is to put together at least 30 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity on most days and preferably all days of the week. In America, all adults should accumulate a minimum of 30 minutes or at least moderate intensity physical activity on most, if not all days of the week. In United Kingdom, for general health benefit, adults should achieve a total of at least 30 minutes a day of at least moderate intensity physical activity on 5 or more days of the week. So, why should India lag behind? India has also recognized the importance of elder care and developed physical activity guidelines for healthy adults. These guidelines are adapted and modified from Physical Activity Consensus Group, the conceptualization, execution and steering committee of which include Dr. Anup Mishra, Dr. Priyanka Nigam, Andrew P. Hills, Devinder S. Chadda. So, what are the recommendations? The first one is that physical inactivity should be avoided as far as possible. Pre-participation medical consultation is recommended for those with chronic diseases, particularly cardiovascular disease, those who are symptomatic and those who are sedentary. In general, a total of 60 minutes of physical activity is recommended every day, which includes aerobic activity, work related activity and muscle strengthening activity. This should include at least 30 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity, example brisk walking, jogging, hiking, gardening, bicycling, etc. 15 minutes of work related activity, example carrying heavy loads, climbing stairs, etc. and 15 minutes of muscle strengthening exercises. The latter should be done at least 3-4 times a week using light weights. Aerobic activity should be performed in bouts of at least 10 minutes duration. For additional health benefits, adults should increase their moderate intensity aerobic physical activity to 300 minutes per week or engage in 150 minutes of vigorous intensity aerobic physical activity per week or an equivalent combination of moderate and vigorous intensity activity. Brisk walking. What is brisk walking? Walking at an intensity wherein an individual finds speaking difficult but not impossible is the preferred initial mode of exercise, as this does not require any special training or equipment. Inactive people should start slow and gradually increase the physical activity levels. The total duration of physical activity could also be accumulated in small 10-15 minute periods of physical activity 2-3 times a day. Physically intensive yoga exercises should also be encouraged, but more research is currently needed in this area. So, overall we see that the golden number is 30 minutes per day. It is advised that inactive people should start with small amounts of physical activity as part of their daily routine and then gradually increase the duration, the frequency and the intensity over time. Besides this, keeping in view the recommendations made in the National Policy on Older Persons as well as the state's obligation under the Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act 2007, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare launched the National Program for the Health Care of the Elderly, that is called NPHCE, during the year 2010 in the 11th plan period to address the various health related problems of elderly people. Here also the government recognizes the importance of medical rehabilitation and therapeutic intervention by arranging therapeutic exercises, training in activities of daily life and the treatment of pain and inflammation through physiotherapy at district hospitals and regional geriatric center levels, for which the necessary infrastructure, medicines and equipment are provided to these identified units. So, but we have been emphasizing on exercises a lot, but why are exercises so important? Exercises are really important for our elderly for the following reasons. They provide a range of benefits. The first one is they improve the mental and cognitive function, reduce the stress and anxiety and improve the self-confidence. They prevent memory loss, which is called dementia, which is a common problem of old age. They promote the secretion of feel-good hormones known as endorphins. They help reduce chronic pain, which means long-standing pain. It reduces the risk of accidental falls. As we know, elderly are very prone to falls, and this leads to fractures because their bones are already weak. Most of them suffer from osteoporosis. Then the exercises are important for maintaining the range of motion of all the joints, as old age people may develop stiffness and loss of range of motion due to disuse, age related changes in the joints, arthritis, diabetes, etc. When we come to diabetics, they are more prone to develop frozen shoulder, so they should be watchful and do shoulder exercises regularly. Maintaining the strength of muscles to prevent atrophy and stall the progress of arthritic conditions also requires one to do regular exercises. Exercises also increase the muscle mass from weight training and improve the metabolism. Exercise also improves the quality of sleep. Sleep is very important for the body to rejuvenate. It improves the flexibility, balance, good posture, gait. Gait is the way that one walks, and exercises also improve neurological control. Exercises boost the immune system, save from infections including COVID-19, which is a worldwide pandemic nowadays, and we have been hearing a lot about immunity nowadays. So, we know the importance of improving our immunity, and exercise plays a very important role in that. To reduce the risk of other non-communicable diseases like coronary heart disease, stroke, high blood pressure, certain types of cancer and diabetes, again exercise plays a very important role. We have to prevent postmenopausal osteoporosis and therefore reduce the risk of osteoporotic fractures. Exercises also reduce the complications of immobility. So, let us look upon the complications of immobility. Immobility is when you do not move as much as you are required to move. So, this causes a number of problems, which includes skin breakdown, pressure ulcers, bed sores, contractures, tightness and deformity of the joints, muscular weakness, wasting of the muscles, muscular atrophy, disuse osteoporosis, renal calculi, which are known as kidney stones in common language, and urinary stasis, urinary retention. It means not being able to empty the urinary bladder easily and completely. Urinary incontinence, not being able to control the leakage of urine. Urinary tract infections, atelectasis. Atelectasis is the collapse of lung alveoli. Pneumonia, decreased respiratory vital capacity, that is the air held in the lungs. So, what should we do to prevent all this? We should do regular exercises, and for doing this we need to design an exercise program. So, let us look at the process of designing an exercise program. The World Health Organization WHO has published specific guidelines for people older than 60 and recommends that both aerobic exercise and strength training should be carried out. For adults aged 65 years and above, they should do at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity throughout the week, or at least 75 minutes of vigorous intensity physical activities throughout the week, or an equivalent combination of moderate and vigorous intensity activity. Physical activity. Now, what is included in physical activity? It is not only the prescribed exercises, but also leisure time physical activity, transportation, occupational work if the individual is still engaged in work, household chores, play games, sports or planned exercise in the context of daily family or community activities. For additional health benefits, they should increase the moderate intensity physical activity to 300 minutes per week or engage in 150 minutes of vigorous intensity aerobic physical activity per week, or an equivalent combination of moderate and vigorous intensity activity. Individuals with poor mobility should perform physical activity to enhance the balance and prevent falls on 3 or more days per week. Muscle strengthening activities involving major muscle groups should be done on 2 or more days a week. Aerobic activity should be done in bouts of at least 10 minutes duration 3 times a day. When adults of this age group cannot do the recommended amounts of physical activity due to health conditions, they should be as physically active as their abilities and conditions allow. So, we now look at the types of physical activities which different patients are advised to do. First of all, we come to independent patients who can do the exercises by themselves and they can take assistance wherever it is required. Activities classified as moderate intensity or vigorous intensity based upon the amount of energy used by the body while doing the activity. The intensity of different forms of physical activity varies between people. The intensity of physical activity depends on an individual's previous exercise experience and their relative level of fitness. Therefore, the examples given below are provided as a guide and will vary between individuals. So, what are the examples of moderate intensity physical activity? Moderate intensity physical activity requires a moderate amount of effort and accelerates the heart rate. Vigorous intensity physical activity requires a large amount of effort with rapid breathing and substantial increase in heart rate. So, that is the difference between the two. When we look at examples of moderate intensity, the examples are brisk walking, dancing, gardening, housework and domestic chores, water aerobics, bicycling slower than 10 miles per hour, general building tasks like roofing, thatching, painting, traditional hunting and gathering activities, active involvement in games, sports with children, walking domestic animals, carrying or moving moderate loads of less than 20 kg. If you look at vigorous intensity exercises, it will include race walking, jogging or running, fast swimming, aerobics, fast bicycling, walking, climbing briskly up a hill, jumping a rope, heavy gardening, continuous digging, hiking uphill or with a heavy backpack. Competitive sports and games, traditional games like football, volleyball, hockey, basketball are all vigorous activity levels. Digging ditches, carrying or shifting heavy loads greater than 20 kg. So, but we are reluctant to do these activities because there are a lot of myths circulating about physical activity. So, we would be discarding some of the myths right now. We think that it is very expensive to be physically active as it needs equipment, special shoes, clothes and even you have to pay for the sports facilities. Physical activity can be done almost anywhere. Walking is highly recommended physical activity and it is absolutely free. Urban parks or the pedestrian areas can be used for walking, running or playing. Another excuse which everybody gives is that I am very busy. Physical activity takes too much of time, but no, physical activities can be incorporated into your daily routine such as at work, at school, at home or even while playing. Simple things like taking the stairs instead of the elevator, riding a bike to work, bike is a bicycle, and getting off the bus 2 stops before you reach your final destination and then walking the rest of the distance can form part of your regular daily activities. Even if you are very busy, you can still fit 30 minutes of physical activity into your daily routine in the form of 10 minutes of brisk walk 3 times a day or 20 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes later that day to improve your health. Another very important thing for the Indian elderly is yoga. Everybody is very keen and interested in doing yoga. For seniors who are looking for a safe and effective way to enhance their physical health and overall wellness, the stretching, breathing and meditation practices of yoga can be a great solution. In fact, as you will see, doing yoga regularly can result in a host of benefits for older adults. They form greater flexibility, improved balance to lower stress and better sleep. Let us look at the benefits one by one. The first of all is better balance. Many yoga poses for seniors focus on strengthening the abdominal muscles and improving your core stability. That can help you become steadier on your feet and reduce your risk of falls. Improved flexibility is another advantage of yoga. Yoga movements can be fantastic stretching exercises for seniors. Holding a pose for several breaths encourages your muscles and connective tissue to relax and loosen, which helps to increase your range of motion. In fact, research in the International Journal of Yoga Therapy has shown that regularly engaging in yoga can dramatically boost the overall flexibility of older adults. Another important benefit of yoga is enhanced breathing. The breathing control practices of yoga, known as pranayam, can expand your lung capacity and improve your pulmonary health. A study published in the Journal of Human Kinetics found that elderly women who practiced yoga 3 times a week for 12 weeks saw a significant improvement in their respiratory function. Stronger bones is also an advantage of yoga. If you are worried about your brittle bones and osteoporosis, try yoga. For older women and men, a consistent yoga routine that includes weight bearing postures can help bolster bone strength. Some promising research has suggested that doing yoga can actually improve the bone density in postmenopausal women. Reduced anxiety and stress is also a benefit which you get through yoga. Through meditation and mindful breathing, yoga encourages you to focus on the present and find a sense of peace. Research has demonstrated that it can lower the levels of stress hormones, cortisol, and help ease symptoms of anxiety and depression. In a National Institutes of Health survey, more than 85% of people who engaged in yoga said that they experienced reduced stress as a result of doing yoga regularly. Yoga also promotes better sleep. Yoga can help alleviate sleep disturbances, which are common complaints among seniors. In a study published in Alternative Therapies in Health and Medicine, adults over the age of 60 who struggled with insomnia participated in yoga classes twice a week and underwent daily sessions at home. After 3 months, the group reported significant improvements in both the duration and overall quality of their sleep. What is the best type of yoga for a senior citizen? We have recently seen that a non-traditional option has come up, which is chair yoga. Not everyone is comfortable with the up and down movements of traditional yoga. In chair yoga, seniors who have mobility challenges or balance issues can enjoy the benefits of yoga without having to get down on a floor mat. A huge number of poses, from spinal twists and hip stretches to chest openers and forward bends, can be modified to be performed from a chair. So, let's be active, everyone, everywhere and every day. These are the things which we have discussed for active patients. Now, there are many elderly who cannot get out of their bed. So, for these kinds of patients, which are called bedridden patients, passive exercises are really important. An assistant can do the range of motion exercises passively for them. It is extremely important to prevent pressure sores, joint stiffness, contractures and deformities. All of the patient's joints have to be moved throughout the range of motion in sets of 10 thrice a day. An air mattress is very important for these kinds of patients. They can be used to prevent pressure sores, and these patients who cannot get out of bed should be kept neat and clean and dry. Massage with any good oil and application of talcum powder is also recommended. Breathing exercises are extremely important for these patients. They can use an incentive spirometer to encourage themselves. We can see an incentive spirometer in the picture. Patient breathes in through the pipe and the piston rises. The rise acts as an incentive and an encouragement. The immobile patient's position should be changed every 2 hours. How do you change the position? There are different positions in which the patient can be kept. First is the supine position. In this position, the patient lies flat on the back. Additional supportive devices like pillows can be added for comfort. Then there is the prone position. The patient lies on the stomach with head turned to the side. Side lying position. Patient lies on the side of the body with the top leg over the bottom leg. This position helps to relieve pressure on the coccyx, that is the tailbone on which we sit and which is a very common site for pressure ulcers. Then there is the Sims position. In this position, the patient lies between supine and prone with legs flexed in front of the patient. Arms should be comfortably placed besides the patient and not underneath him. Now, we have looked at all these positions, and you have to keep turning the patient from one position to another at a distance of 2 hours. So, this completes our topic about the exercises, and now we come to the topic of assistive devices. Why do we want to use assistive devices? For the elderly, assistive devices are very important for mobility, for support, for toileting, and they are highly recommended. Walking support is required to assist the weak joints, the weak muscles, their poor posture, poor balance. The walking assistive device increases the base of support and prevents falls. Let us look at the examples of these devices. First of all, we have canes. These are commonly used for walking. They can be single base, tripod or quadrupod canes, and they can be height adjustable. It is good to have a rubber base to prevent slippage. Another assistive device for mobility are walkers. Walkers can also be foldable and height adjustable. They generally offer more support than the canes. Next we come to wheelchairs. Wheelchairs can be used for patients who have a high level of difficulty in walking. These wheelchairs can also be of different types. They can be foldable, they can be self-controlled, they can be electrically controlled, they can be motorized. Another thing is, an important thing is braces. Braces are commonly used for the elderly. These are generally used to support the joints. For example, we can see knee unloaders, arthritic braces, lumbar corsets. These provide support and take some load off the joints to decrease the pain and slow the progress of degeneration. What another important thing we see are toilet seats. Mobile toilet seats for patients who cannot walk much. Height adjusted toilet seats for patients with knee and hip problems. Patients who have undergone knee or hip replacement are advised to not sit on the floor and squat. So, these seats are extremely useful for them. Very important thing is well cushioned sport shoes, which the elderly are advised to wear to take the load off the feet and the knees. These should be anti slip, and they can be slip on type, which are the ones which can be easily worn without the use of hands and without bending. Besides all this, older adults might need help to be transferred from the bed to a wheelchair, or from the wheelchair to the bed, or to and from toilet seats. So, the person who is looking after them should learn the proper way to transfer. So, we will be looking at the steps to be followed to transfer a patient from a bed to the wheelchair. First of all, you have to get the patient ready to transfer. Before transferring into the wheelchair, the patient must be sitting. This is important to prevent postural hypotension, that is the sudden fall of blood pressure on sitting. So, you allow the patient to sit for a few moments in case the patient feels dizzy when first sitting up. The following steps should be followed when getting ready to transfer a patient. To get the patient into a seated position, roll the patient onto the same side as the wheelchair. Put one of your arms under the patient's shoulders and one behind the knees. Bend your knees. Swing the patient's feet off the edge of the bed and use the momentum to help the patient into a sitting position. Move the patient to the edge of the bed and lower the bed so the patient's feet are touching the ground. After the patient is sitting in a comfortable position, you have to do a pivot turn. You can use a gait belt for this, and you place it on the patient to help you get a grip during the transfer. During the turn, the patient can either hold you or reach for the wheelchair. You have to stand as close to the patient as you can, reach around the chest and lock your hands behind the patient or grab the gait belt. Then after this, when you reach this position, the following steps should be followed. Place the patient's outside leg, that is the one farthest from the wheelchair, between the knees for support. Bend your knees and keep your back straight. Count to 3 and slowly stand up. Use your legs to lift. At the same time, the patient should place their hands by their sides and help to push off the bed. The patient should help support their weight on their good leg during the transfer. Now you have to pivot towards the wheelchair, moving your feet so your back is aligned with your hips. Remember, you have to prevent injury to yourself also. So, you have to take the weight on your legs and not on your back. Once the patient's legs are touching the seat of the wheelchair, bend your knees to lower the patient into the seat. At the same time, ask the patient to reach for the wheelchair armrest. If the patient starts to fall during the transfer, lower the person to the nearest flat surface that is available, a bed, a chair or the floor. For transfers, you can also use sliding boards. These are placed between the bed and the wheelchair and the patient slides upon it. Why is transportation of the elderly person necessary? We know that the elderly person's body structure and body systems are changing and becoming weak. As a caregiver, understanding the exercises, assistive devices and transfer from bed to stretcher or wheelchair and vice versa will help you to apply less energy with correct technique and provide comfort to the elderly person. Thank you. Hope this information helps you become a good carer for our elders. Best of luck.